In this video, I will be showing you how to make a garden protection sleeve. In my demonstration, I'll be making a protection sleeve for a child. First, you will need to create the sleeve pattern. And to do that, you can use a long sleeve pattern with a close fit like this. And the first thing you're going to do is mark a notch at the center seam along the bottom edge of your sleeve pattern. Now you want to determine how long you want the sleeve to be. For example, my niece's sleeve will stop about 3 inches above her elbow, so I measured from her wrist to that stopping point to determine the sleeve length. Your measurement will end up being your sleeve length plus your hemline. So I'm going to mark up about 13 inches. And I'll be removing this. The cap, we don't need that. So you have your center seam notch, and take into account your seam allowance plus your hemline. My hemline here is going to be 3/8 of an inch. You now have your sleeve. Now we're going to create our cuff pattern, and the cuff pattern is going to be a rectangle shape. The first thing I need to do is create a fold line, and your fold line is actually going to be where your your cuff stops. So for example, on my sleeve, my cuff stops at my knuckle. And for this one, for my niece, it's probably going to stop at her knuckle as well. So that's your fold line, and you're going to want to mark that out as well. And take a ruler and a black pen and mark it out. This will also serve as my line for my stretch line so that I'll know that the fabric should have the greatest stretch from going in this direction. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and draw my gray line too. Like that. We're going to need 3 measurements total, and those 3 measurements are going to go in this direction and this direction, which is going to give us 6 lines in total. First, I'm going to measure from her knuckle to her thumb, and I'm going to create the first line using a red pen. So the measurements from her knuckle to her thumb are 1.5 inch. And I'll also do it in this direction as well. So it's going to be 1.5 inch from the fold line. That's our red line. The next measurement we'll be taking, it will be for the thumb opening, which I determined needs to be 1 inch. And I'm going to mark that in green. So I'm going to measure 1 inch from the red line for the thumb opening. Again, we're doing this in both directions. Last, I am going to measure from her thumb hole area to her wrist. In this case, that's 1.5 inch plus my seam allowance, which is 1/4 an inch. So we're going to measure 1 3/4 an inch from the green line. And I'm going to mark that line in purple. So your cuff pattern is going to be a rectangle shape. We just got finished creating the length for the long edge of your rectangle shape, and now you need to get the length for the short edge of your rectangle shape, which is actually fairly simple to do. That's just going to be the length of the bottom edge of your sleeve minus half an inch. So in my case, that is 5 3/4 an inch. So that's 5 3/4. I'm going to go ahead and create a line going down, connect it to the other purple line. Now I'll be cutting around the purple line. You're going to cut 2 of this, but you want to make sure that you mark on your fabric either by chalk or just notching into the fabric the green and red line marks. So I'm just going to put a little arrow here so I can remember to notch here on the fabric. But you're going to notch at your green and red lines on the fabric as well. After you cut out all your pieces and mark your notches, it's time to sew it. First, we're going to start with the cuff. So you're going to pin the long edges of the cuff together, and you're going to sew, leaving an opening between the notches. So when I say leave an opening, you're going to sew from here to here and leave an opening between the notch. Then sew from here to the next notch and leave an opening, and then sew from here to here. And I might demonstrate it better on the pattern. You're going to sew from your cuff edge to your green line, leave an opening between your green and your red line. Sew from red line to red line, leave an opening between your red and green line, and sew from green line to the cuff edge. After you finish stitching, you're going to press your seams open. Then you're going to fold your cuff with the wrong side facing. You're going to fold it in half. You want to make sure that your seams match up. So you want to make sure your seams match up. And this is why pressing the seam is so important, because it turns in easier right there at that thumb hole. And now you have your thumb opening for your cuff. And what you're going to do is you could either stitch it by hand. That's probably what I'll do. But you're going to want to stitch it down right here in the edges of the thumb hole opening. Once you finish sewing the cuff, you can sew the sleeve using whatever your seam allowance is. Now we're going to attach the cuff to the sleeve, and what I recommend you do is do your pinning together. So you're going to want to take both of your sleeves, and you're going to make sure that the notches that you marked out at the bottom of the sleeve are facing each other. And then you're going to take your cuff with the thumb hole facing up, and you're going to place it inside the sleeve. So basically the right side of the cuff should be facing the right side of the sleeve. And you are going to be stretching the cuff to fit into the sleeve. So it's okay if you stretch the cuff a little as you're pinning. After you pin your cuff to your sleeves, you're going to go to the sewing machine and stitch this in place, making sure to stretch the cuff slightly as you sew to fit the sleeve. The last thing that you have to do for this is finish the hem, or you can leave it unfinished if you like that, but I'm going to finish the hem by turning it under slightly, and I'm going to finish it on my cover stitch machine so that it can still have slight stretch to it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section.